I'm going to bring one day. Okay, we'll convene the Education and Government Committee meeting. Where are we at here? 7:37. And before we get to comments from the board, I think we should call on the ever-patient Dr. Dustin Swanger to address us this evening regarding the FMCC budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have better news than Eric. I'll ask you to look at the executive summary of the budget. We provide this every year to try and give you a clear image of what we're doing budget-wise at the college. And if you look at page 2, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I'll point out some highlights. If you look at page 2, you'll see the enrollment trends in FTE. That is being seen all across the country. There are probably two major factors that are influencing that. One is the economy is picking up, so there are lots of jobs available. I'm sure Ken has talked to you about jobs in Montgomery County that are unfilled. So that impacts that. And there's also fewer college-age students all across the country, even in our area high schools and school districts. They're seeing fewer students now than they have in the last several years. So that is impacting us as well. If you look at page 3, that top graph, you'll see that what's happening is the full-time student population is diminishing while the part-time student population is increasing. So head count, while it's changed, hasn't changed as significantly as full-time equivalent has changed. On page 4, just a couple of highlights. The budget that we present is just a little over 3% less than last year's budget. We're not asking for an increase in county aid this year. A few years ago, you were kind enough to give us an additional $100,000. I promised you I wouldn't ask for 3 years. This is the 3rd year of that. Hint, hint, for next budget cycle. The state increased their portion, their per FTE payment to us by $50. Our request to bring the state up to a 1/3 of our budget, you might recall when community colleges were created, the vision was that the county sponsors would pay a 1/3, the state would pay a 1/3, and tuition would pay a 1/3. We requested $250,000, sorry, $250 per FTE to get the state up to its 1/3. They gave us $50 per FTE, so they're not there. We also show a significant use of fund balance, about $500,000 and change. I don't think we're actually going to use all that. There's some things that we have to budget. For example, we have to budget $150,000 a year for faculty retirement. I only know of one retirement for next year, and it's not that expensive. So I really don't think we're going to use all of that. We'll use some. This particular year, this year, we budgeted $215,000, I think, in fund balance, and I think we're going to use about $40,000 of fund balance. So it's probably a better look than that.
Excuse me, Dusty.
Yes.
How much is left in the totality of the fund?
At the end of this year, it would be about 1.6 million.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip you over to page 6, and if you look at that pie chart, you'll see that as probably as the county, we are a personnel-heavy expense budget. About 84% of our expenses are personnel. I did skip something I wanted to point out. On page 4, if you wouldn't mind flipping back to that, there's a section of what we've cut to reduce expenses. We've reduced full-time positions by 10 on campus. Many of those were through attrition, but I did have to meet with some people and tell them that they would have a job next year. We reduced library salaries, that's primarily adjuncts, adjunct librarians, adjunct salaries for teaching classes, and you can see some of the other things that we've reduced in order to maintain our budget. If you would skip to page 8, you'll see that that's where our revenue comes from. In that graph, 28% comes from the state. That's the projection. 40% from tuition. But then you need to add in where you see the other revenue, which is about 8%. The other revenue are like lab fees and things like that. So students are paying about 48% of the budget instead of a third. If you look at each county, gives us about 8% of our budget. And then if you take all of the items that count as local sponsor match, so that would be the 8% that each county gives, the 5% chargeback to other counties, that counts as your contribution, and use of fund balance counts as your use of your contribution. It's about 24% of our budget. And if you look at page 11, this is a budget presentation that you're probably used to seeing, where you'll see the operating budget for this year and the operating budget for next year, and the increases and decreases by line. And that at the bottom, you would see the fund balance, where at the end of the year we anticipate about $1.6 million. If we used all of the $515,000 next year, our fund balance would be down to about $1.1 million. I don't like a fund balance to get below 5%. Neither does Middle States, which is our accrediting agency. And I don't like it to get above like 15%. We've been at highs about 12, 13%. So that's where we are. I think it's a very responsible budget. We've done a lot to manage our expenses. Tuition is increasing $250. It's more than I would like. But there's a lot of factors that are hitting that, including the decreasing in enrollment. Also, the lack of public support from the state and not asking the counties for additional sponsor support this year. And there's another new factor this year, and that is the Excelsior Scholarship. And because in addition to a number of things that were included in that legislation, we have to freeze tuition for anybody that receives an Excelsior Scholarship at this year's tuition rate for 4 years. And then after 4 years, then we can reset. But anybody that gets an Excelsior Scholarship, they are not paying an increased tuition, which means we have to, it causes an impact on our tuition rate. I don't know what the Excelsior Scholarship is, how it's going to impact us, frankly. Our estimate is there might be 100, 150 students that get an Excelsior Scholarship because many of them will already have TAP and Pell, which come first in the legislation. The Excelsior Scholarship is the last dollar in. I would also tell you that enrollment for next year, I'm cautiously optimistic. And I say that because we've done a number of things to try and turn it around. And what we've done, although higher education is much more competitive now than it was in the past, but what we've done, we've taken our website, and our website was an information site. And we've taken that initial page and really turned it into a marketing site. And our inquiries have gone up 600% over last year. Our applications are up about 24% over last year. And right now, registration's up about 3.6% over last year. Same time this compared to same time last year. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to see the trend start to change from decreasing to moderate increases. Too early to give you a good, strong prediction, but I'm optimistic maybe 1 or 2% we might see an increase.
Plus the foreign students, what levels are we at now?
We're about 125 this year, and we continue to recruit. It is, I would say, fairly stable at that,
Been in that range.
at that number. Now, a couple of years ago, I'm going to give you fact, and I'm going to give you opinion. A couple of years ago, we put some additional resources into international student recruitment. And our applications increased significantly. Hundreds of applications. We went from like 250 to almost 600 applications. And when it comes to CVIS requests, which is asking for a visa, and you can only, when you ask for a visa, you can only name one institution. You can't say, I'd like to go to one of these 6 schools. It's one. Also increased significantly. The State Department still only approved about the same number that they have always approved. So there's a couple things going on. While the State Department says there isn't a quota per institution, I don't believe that. And then the other thing that's happening, although our numbers are not looking too bad for next year, the other thing that's happening with international population, international student population, the messages coming out of the federal government, whether you're a pro-Trump supporter or not, I don't care, the messages coming out of the federal government is you're not welcome. And what's happening is applications for student visas all across the country are declining, and applications for student visas in Canada and Australia are skyrocketing.
I was just asking maybe as a potential supplement, knowing that it existed, but.
It's a tough market.
It is a tough market.
It's a tough market right now.
I mean, those foreign students are on Twitter.
They're watching. They're watching and they're saying, I might want to go over here.
We might want to start recruiting in Russia instead of the Far East.
But we had students from 26 different countries this year, which, there's a financial advantage to us for international students, and that's nice. But really why I liked it is look at this, look at our native students from Fulton and Montgomery County. Where else would they be able to interact with people from 24 different countries on a campus without leaving home? And let's face it, many of our students that are here probably aren't going to Europe anytime soon. So it really is a great opportunity for them to experience people from other cultures. And it adds a lot to our campus.
No question.
Dustin, the next time you're meeting with the local superintendents, would you provide them with that little bit of marketing? Because I've been trying to talk to the people around this area for a long time, saying that we have great websites for what we do in-house, but we need to market what we do. I mean, right here, even in the county, we don't market the county as why you should move into the county because of our schools and our college. And what you said was very important, what I've been trying to say for a long time, but maybe if they hear from someone else, they'll
I will. You if you don't mind taking just another minute. You make a very good point, Bob. Websites are so chock full of information, but they're not marketing driven by and large, particularly public sector websites. And as enrollment started to decline, I talked with our marketing folks and said, this is all students, everybody goes to your website. Nobody picks up a brochure anymore. They all go to your website. And if we're not marketing there, we're gonna lose. You go to Southern New Hampshire University, SNH.
Online college.
Yeah, SN, Southern New Hampshire University, SNHU or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is. If you make an inquiry that you're interested in registering for a class, they guarantee you that within 9 minutes you will get a call back. 9 minutes. We're doing a great job, I think, that within 1 business day, if you make an inquiry, within 1 business day, we will be in touch with you. 9 minutes. So I gave this presentation at the business officers, community college business officers last week, and I mentioned that. And one of the business officers went on their website and made an inquiry, and in 2 minutes and 56 seconds, he got a call. So it's a competitive market, and we've got to do better. We've got to do more. But you're right. School districts could do the same thing. We've got to market.
You made the comment in the very beginning that the enrollment's down because of employment. You know, what is that saying about the area? That there's employment, there's jobs. We've got a community college where you can do part-time, you can work. There's so much, but we, as a county, as schools, we do not. We beat up on ourselves, but we do not go off and tell people what we have here and why you should move into this area.
And I would proudly tell you that we're working on that. The CEO Roundtable, along with our economic development folks and some of our school districts, we're starting to work on it. And some of our local businesses that, well, of course, they're in the CEO. We're looking at that because we have to market the area. We need more people to live and work in these 2 counties.
Trustee, I mean, having been on the board, what is the number of students coming out of Montgomery and Fulton County high schools today versus when you first signed on at FM in 2005 or 6? I mean, how markedly has it gone down? I mean, if you can quantify.
Off the top of my head, Mike, over the last several years, I would say there's probably in the region, 2 county region, there's probably between 350 and 500 fewer students graduating this year than compared to when I moved into the area.
And that's out of 5
But
Montgomery County high schools and...
But the enrollments in the high schools has also gone down.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
Fonda School went from 125 down to 80.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So the enrollments in the schools have dropped during that. You know,
That's exactly
my point. My point is
exactly what it
that
is.
there's less families, you know, having less children and...
but going along with what we just said, knowing that the enrollment in our schools is lower, if we don't market what we have here, we can't bring in other people to go to school here.
If we don't begin to market our area, to live and work in the area, the rate at which the overall population aging, I mean, we will be even an older couple of counties than we are now statistically, and we've got to bring more people in. Here's another little caveat. It's highly likely that people we bring in will not look like us. It will be a more diverse population, and we're going to have to embrace that.
Thank you. I do want to thank you for the concise presentation. The budget overview was great, the control measures, and most importantly, meeting the 3-year commitment that you made. So I think that's noteworthy and make our jobs, of course, a little bit easier this year. Thank you.
Just to let everyone know that this month you'll have a resolution scheduling the public hearing that we have to do by law, and then that'll be for July, and then we'll adopt the budget
In July.
in July. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So before we get to the discussion point of the county auditor, does anyone wish to be heard on any matter before the committee? If not, just briefly, with respect to this county auditor's position, I just want to offer up a few remarks. You know that I've always thought that the county should have an auditor, and that for us to simply review and sign off on the bills really does not perform the function of an audit. There was $30,000 in the budget last year, but that was for a part-time auditor. It appears to me that the charter calls for a full-time auditor. And do we all have that section?
To
Yes. County legislature may appoint an auditor who shall serve until his or her successor is appointed. The auditor and full-time managerial employees in the department shall serve on a full-time basis and shall not engage in any private practice, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I think, the flaw there is that we can't take advantage of people who can serve a number of clients on a part-time basis at a cost that is less than what it would cost us to hire an auditor. So we can, obviously we can make a change to that position. And that's something that I would like us to consider going forward. Leaving that $30,000 line item in the next budget and then making the change to the charter. We've all sat there and signed off on the bills, and we know what that's like. And that certainly is not the function of that an audit really would produce with respect to all proper purchasing practices and such. And we should not be deceived by the fact that this happens to be working right now and that there aren't any problems. Because, well, A, we don't know that there are any problems. I don't suspect that there are, but certainly we don't know for sure. And second, that's an area where problems could arise in the future with respect to purchasing. Anyone else?
I would just, along those lines, as far as the charter, I would think we could do that as a passive resolution instead of voting number, simply because I think the restrictions were put in, I hate to use the term illegally, but it was not thought out well to put these types of restrictions in which, in basis, the only requirements for an auditor, because it's a civil service position, are the requirements are listed in the job in that posting. So the rest of it is just it's not a legitimate qualification. There's not legitimate part of the job description. So I think we can just we're going to pass a resolution to pretty much say that it's the auditor's job description is what the civil service job description. All the rest of it's just.
Is that the way that could work?
Well, I think you would want to amend the charter, but I believe this would not be something that would need to go to a referendum.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little easier.
We did that with the attorney.
Right?
Yes.
So, okay, so tell me again how you'd like to do it?
We would just come up with a passive resolution. We would just pass it normally, run it through committee, come to our full board, and the basis of it will be the job description of the auditor is a civil service position, and the rest of that stuff is.
As it, okay.
I'm happy to work with whoever wants to amend that language.
Well, that's what I'm interested in, and we can discuss this further, but that's the type of legislation that I'm interested. I'm interested in the end result here, to get a part-time auditor.
Yeah. I mean, what we're doing, we're okaying bills to be paid. We're not auditing anything. There's no analytics going on.
We're not reviewing the policies.
Not reviewing the policies, and I'm not like Legislator says. He said, I think we're pretty much in compliance, but are we paying more? I remember when the last auditor was here, we were paying so much more, 5 cents, something like that, per gallon on gasoline that municipalities didn't have to pay. If we didn't have an auditor, we wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
The discounts that the counties are entitled to. It hasn't happened this year. In the past, we paid late fees. Counties, municipalities, villages don't pay late fees. That's not something anyone else does, and we do or did.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all things that could be alleviated by having an auditor.
So, Mr. Chair, as it pertains to our cost center budget that I handed out to everyone a little bit earlier, that's something we should consider incorporating into our budget for next year
Yeah,
within our cost center.
I think so.
Okay. That's where it was before too, correct? Before it was?
Yes.
Okay.
I originally, thought that the auditor position was more of a bill-paying position and should come under the general day-to-day. But if you read, I sent everybody a link. If you saw the approving effectiveness on the claims audit process from the controller's office was sent to me, it specifically said that it's a function of the legislature.
Right.
Yeah, that's our stopgap.
Right.
Thank you.
On the chair's note, there's also a webinar on June 20th, if anybody's interested, on improving effectiveness of claims processing. It's from the Office of the State Controller. If anybody would like that, I have it, plus I forwarded it.
I can send an email out to everyone right now.
So we'll prepare a resolution for that effect for discussion next meeting?
Why don't I work with the chairman or whoever would like to work on the language that you want and on the format that you want. I believe it needs to be local law, passing the resolution.
Okay.
So why don't we work on that, get that together, and then bring it for the board when it's in a good shape.
That's good with me. Okay. All right. Anything else?
I have a question. Martin's been very much involved in the auditing department, not this year. I wanted to the last few years that you were here. Do you feel that there is a problem down there in that area? I mean, you know more than me or anybody.
I think that it would be a good tool to have an auditor, but we just need to work on what we're expecting this position to do. Like, it's great that we're using these dashboards and stuff. I think if we had an auditor in place, they would be able to, zoom in a little bit more than bird's eye view that we're
I
getting.
only asked that question because you've had a handle on it, whatever. a lot of us.
Well, some of us have been doing it 3 to 4 times a week since the beginning of the year, or a year, 3 to 4 times a month since the beginning of the year.
I'm not questioning that.
No, I know that. I'm just saying, and I know he did it quite a few times, Joe, probably every year, when the last 3 years. So,
I'm just questioning
yeah,
experience here.
sure.
Okay, so with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. We're at 8:06.
One more thing to
Yes.
have fun with the legislators about it. We'd like, every month I try to get more legislators down there to take a look at the process, and maybe that can give you a clearer picture.
That's the reason I don't do them. I have a clear picture.
You have a clear picture already, yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Dan, second. Bob? All in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned.